A nice win for the Pacers. They made it stressful, but they get their second in a row. They beat the Rockets at home. Tyrese Haliburton plays more minutes in all four quarters. TJ McConnell saved the day. Lots of good stuff for the Pacers, and we have lots of trade rumors to cover on today's Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Wednesday, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and SI, and today, lots to get to. Pacers beat the Rockets. It was a very weird game. Rockets were on fire in the first half. Pacers had to come back from down double digits, but man, did they. Haliburton played a lot and hit a clutch shot. TJ McConnell was a savior. Siakam was fantastic. Lots of fun X's and O's in this game. Some important guys stepping up. And the trade deadline's tomorrow. Let's catch up on the latest rumors. Three more that have come out that are credible. Since Alex Golden and I ran through everything that had already come out about the Pacers a couple weeks ago. If you want to listen to that show, I can't remember exactly when it was, but we went through all of them if you would like to catch up on what has been reported, again, credibly. I had someone's DM me quite a few things that I think I missed. No, not credible. For the Pacers in the next potentially day, trade deadline, 3 p.m. on Thursday. We will start with the actual we will start in Gainbridge Fieldhouse, where I met two lovely listeners, Andy and Ben, I believe. They asked me to take a picture. I apologize to both of you. I should have done it. I was in a rush and I had enough time, but I am a jerk. Anyway, in Gainbridge Fieldhouse, besides me being a jerk, there was a very fun basketball game. Pacers beat the Rockets 132-129. Final score weirdly indicative of this game, but not really. I mean, I wouldn't say the Pacers deserved to win by more than 3, but when the game mattered in the fourth quarter, the Pacers were way better. When the Rockets stopped hitting every shot ever, the Pacers had no trouble. Just to contextualize this for you, and I'm not saying this to say the Pacers deserved better results. Their defense wasn't awesome in the first half of this game, but it wasn't so bad that the Rockets should have made 65% of their shots and 8 of their 12 threes with only 6 turnovers, right? I will concede that the Pacers, again, did not defend wonderfully, but to hit the shots the Rockets were hitting, not only in general, but from mid-range, if you look at their shot chart, a ton of long twos, a ton of like stuff from the wing, and they were tough shots, fadeaways, guy in their face. Their threes are open. Some of their rim stuff was open, but they were crushing it in the first half. And so the Pacers were down as many as 10, and the Rockets got to 10 in the early third quarter too, but it never felt like they had that kind of grip on the game, right? Because it felt like at any moment, the Pacers will figure out what they can do and kind of make a comeback and have this happen. And that's exactly what happened. Subs came in late third. Pacers depth that's been such a strength for them all season turned this game around for the Pacers. They finally got a couple stops in a row. They cut it to 4, then they cut it to 3, then the bench came in. They cut it to 1, and Buddy Hield, fittingly, who had a very nice game, hits a 3, 198 Pacers lead. They never gave it back. They got up to a double-digit lead themselves before the Rockets made them sweat, though, and that's why this ended up being a 3-point game, because the Pacers went up as much as 14 in the fourth and still needed to lock up on D on the last couple possessions because their end of this game was so terrible. Pacers were up 8 with 2 minutes to go. They were up 10 with 3:48. They were up 10 with 3 minutes to go, actually. I didn't realize how little time was left in this game, but they couldn't make anything. Nembhard miss, turnover, Haliburton miss, Siakam miss, Nisman misses a free throw. That's all in 2 minutes. Well, the Rockets got some buckets. And Jalen Green hit a big 3, 45 seconds to go. All of a sudden, all the Pacers' goodwill and great play in the fourth quarter. The Rockets cooled off. Looked like it was for nothing. But Tyrese Haliburton playing in the fourth quarter, clutch bucket, puts the Pacers up 5-8. Rockets could not capitalize. So the Pacers did a lot to try to blow it. But really, to me, this game was close because of how hot the Rockets' shooting was in the first half. The Pacers played a better game, right? And the Rockets deserve credit for making the shots. Like they played well in that way. The results were good. But from a process perspective, from an openness of shots generated perspective in general, I thought the Pacers were the better team for most of the game. and that ended up being the case. Pacers shot 63% for the night. They also shot very well from three, but generated good looks throughout the game. The Pacers shot 46.9% from three. That is a lower percentage than the Rockets did in this game, but the Pacers win the turnover battle, which helped because they got smoked on the glass, and that is how they got it done. So a couple standout things from this game. One, Tyrese Haliburton's minutes. This is the place to start because this is the biggest thing that matters for the Pacers in the short and potentially long term, but they only have 4 more games until the All-Star break, right? So that's a long time off for Haliburton to kind of recover a little bit. But any ramp up, I'm just guessing, but I would guess he does not get to a full minutes load before the break, especially if they can win like this. Haliburton, he'd been playing 20 to 22 minutes for the last 5 Pacers games. Tonight, significantly, not only did he play 29 minutes and 5 seconds, and he said he felt good after the game. His first question I asked him. He played in all 4 quarters of the game. He was able to play first, second, third, and fourth quarter. We did hear Rick Carlisle say in the morning on 107.5 The Fans the Morning Show, who has been killing it, getting good info out of Carlisle, that in Charlotte, when the Pacers won by 16, they could have played Tyrese in the fourth quarter. Like, it would have been allowed by their plan, but they didn't need to. They were up so much that it didn't matter. He was already over 20 minutes. Rick didn't say that part, but that, it was, I don't know if that's actually a reasoning, but it does help. It didn't matter. They didn't need to play him in the fourth. This time, they did play him in the fourth because it was a close game, and Haliburton got it done with the clutch shot late. I think that had to feel good for his recovery. 18 points on 15 shots, 7 assists. Actually lost his minutes by 1 point, but that is noteworthy for the Pacers that, once he got aggressive in this game, I think taking 15 shots, like you could tell he's moving a little better. That was significant. Played well with Siakam. I think this was a step forward for the Pacers, who now can play Tyrese Haliburton more. Their rotation's more stable. This could be more of what you see potentially for a Pacers rotation perspective going forward. The only difference being Ben Mathurin did not play. He was very sick. Apparently he showed up, bad stomach bug. I didn't see him at all in the arena at all. We'll see when he can return to action. But Tyrese Haliburton played a lot, played well. That is, of course, story 1, 2, and 3 to me for the Pacers. That's the big thing. They have one more home game on Thursday before the break, and then they're all on the road. So banking these wins when you can is important for the Pacers, who have now clinched, by the way, an over 500 record heading into the All-Star break, but specifically winning a game where you have a plan now for how you can distribute your minutes, I think, was important for the Pacers. They get it done. Thing number 2 that I thought was noteworthy, and I'll be writing about this one, TJ McConnell was awesome. Fan-frickin-tastic. I don't want to insert myself too much into the story, but third quarter, Pacers are coming back. They get it to 4. Rockets go up a little more. They get it to 3. And I was sent by James Boyd from The Athletic, and I turned to James. I said, James, I think this game is decided by TJ McConnell's second half play. Because if he does well enough that they're either tied down 3 in it, whatever, when Haliburton comes back in, if Haliburton comes back in, I think they'll win. I think it's going to come down to what he's able to do to guide the second unit. And he was sensational in the second half, just crushing it everywhere. In the second half, McConnell 4 for 5 from the field, 2 rebounds, 9 points, plus 8. Not only did he not make sure the Pacers lead went down or they were tied when Haliburton came back in, they were winning. They went from losing to winning when he went from in to out. Big cheers from the crowd when he came out of the game. And this is fascinating to me that, we were talking to Rick Carlisle before the game about, their new rotation with Haliburton's minutes and starting Andrew Nembhard and all sorts of stuff. Nembhard, by the way, very good again in this game. And he said part of the pro of starting Andrew Nembhard at the 2 is that you can play TJ McConnell very easily, right? He is now your backup 1. You can still get Nembhard out there a lot. Nembhard played 31 and a half minutes in this game. But you can play TJ. Like, it's very easy to make that rotation work out for the Pacers. So that's an added benefit of starting Nembhard over someone like Hield or Mathurin, is it lets you play TJ McConnell. And he was awesome. 8 for 11, 4 assists, a steal, 17 points, and a +2 and a 3-point win. The Pacers tried to find a way to play him, especially with their guard rotation changing post Bruce Brown. Starting Nembhard was the way to do it. He's earned these minutes with his play this year, but now he's really earned this spot by, continuing to be a great backup point guard for this group, guiding that second group, because Hield was good and Smith was efficient, but it didn't feel like the bench was like so forceful compared to some of their better games. But they still were fantastically efficient and all in the pluses because McConnell was setting things in motion, getting that group going, allowing the mix and matching to happen. So the point guard play was the biggest two stories of the game. We got to write about TJ McConnell. We got some good quotes on him from a lot of guys after the game, but Siakam was awesome. Got to talk about him. Myles Turner stepped up scoring. A lot of other important stuff from this game. Buddy Hield had a wonderfully good game as well that he needed. Still so much more to get to from Pacers Rockets and more trade rumors. We'll just flow right into those in segment 2 here in just a second. Before we hop in to segment 2, though, really quickly, I have to talk to you guys about two wonderful groups of people. First up, the good folks over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, what brings home the winning trophy, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's guaranteed fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you're just going to get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit only available to U.S. customers. We're also going to talk about the lovely folks over at PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. It's daily fantasy sports made easy. It's simple. You pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch your winnings roll. And it's demon time on PrizePicks, apparently. You can now win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into 1,000. Demons and goblins are the most exciting way to play at PrizePicks. Now, squares marked with red demons or green goblins get you different payouts. And you can now win up to 100 times your money, again, with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks proud to offer their injury insurance policy, so your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. It's a simple way to play. You can have quick withdrawals. It's easy. They have an enormous selection of players and stats. It's all why PrizePicks is the #1 daily fantasy sports app. You got to try it yourself. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use the code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA with the code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100 at PrizePicks Daily Fantasy Sports made easy. And we're back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. For your second listen, check out Locked On Rockets. Jackson Gallen will have more on the upcoming Rockets. They had maybe my favorite individual play of the season. I saw with my own eyes this game. A Cam Whitmore to Jalen Green alley-oop that was, it was fantastic. I loved Amen Thompson in this draft, as listeners will know. He had like a gazillion dunks in this game. Alperen Şengün is a monster in the waiting. Not even really in waiting. He's already good. Lots of fun stuff coming out of Houston. Had 4 20-point scores with Jalen Green having 30 and still lost to the Pacers in this game. A lot of other guys who deserve some praise on the Pacers for this one. Pascal Siakam maybe should have been a guy I opened with. I wanted to talk about the point guards first. The thing that stood out about Siakam in this game, 2 of them actually. 29, 4-4. The 4-4 were lesser than his normal nights for the Pacers. 29 higher by a lot. He was really great scoring the ball in this game, even on a tough matchup in Jabari Smith, who's got some length and some size to disrupt him. He hit 4 threes. That was thing 1 that I thought really stood out. 2 corner threes, maybe 3, but he hit some above the break ones that, he doesn't normally just take so confidently, but he took them confidently and he drilled them. That was, of course, important for his scoring output. The thing that stood out to me about him in this game is, especially in the first half when the Rockets were kind of getting away from the Pacers a bit. They were hot. They got up 10. Siakam's ability to kind of just like shimmy into his spots in the mid-range, that's not like, it doesn't feel Pacers-y, and I don't mean that as a negative, right? What you think of as the Pacers in this high-flying, very efficient spots, pick your rim or 3 attack, the breaking it up every so often with the guy who's efficient from the spots that aren't typically efficient has really shaken up their offense in a meaningful way, where it's like, oh, the 3 in the rim aren't there. Great. Let's toss it to Pascal, who loves this elbow spot he's in and can just turn and shoot over his defender. And he had a couple of those buckets that, I don't know what the perfect term for them is. I'm going to pull up a shot chart while I'm talking, but he just drilled them. And it doesn't like negatively break up the rhythm of the game. It just changes kind of how you think about the Pacers offense and we need to defend them. Yeah. He had 4 shots outside of the restricted area on kind of the right side on 2-pointers, 3 of them were very obviously mid-rangers, and then 2 above the break 3. So, of course, he was living at the rim, but just that kind of ability was really, I think, important for the Pacers offensively in this game, and 29-4-4 speaks for itself. He was very good. Aaron Nesmith continues to play well. Myles Turner had 21 points because Şengün is very slow, and he could just put it on the floor. I was laughing at a basket in the first half where Turner just sized up Şengün, 2 dribbles hard to his right, no move, no crossover, no post move, just 2 fast dribbles, easy bucket. Like, they were trading blows, certainly. Turner finishes with 21, but fouls out. The last guy to talk about today, Buddy Hield. Buddy Hield getting a lot of discourse around him recently because mostly of the trade deadline, but also because of his play, not making shots. 5 for 7 today, 2 for 4 from deep, which means he made all 3 of his 2-point attempts, 3 boards, 6 assists, plus 11, team high by a mile. No one else was better than plus 3 in this game. Buddy Hield was very good. This has not been obviously something that happens often this recently, which is why the discourse around him is what it is. But he was very, very good in this game. He had maybe my favorite pass from him all season in a pick and roll with Jalen Smith, where he drew 2 defenders coming around the screen and threw an underhanded scooping left-handed pass to Jalen Smith in the lane. Jalen Smith, I believe, dunked it on that play. He was looking really good, really focused. And of course, when you hit half your threes, you're going to look good as a shooter. I again asked him about that after the game, and he, believes in his work, thinks he'll get through it. I still have felt like that the next 3 Buddy Hield takes he'll make all season, even with his dwindling percentage, even though I've had to kind of recalibrate what level I think of him as a shooter as. The noteworthy part was Tyrese Haliburton talking about Hield after the game. He was very happy to be asked about Buddy Hield by James Boyd of The Athletic. I'll pull up some of the quotes. But he said, the one thing people need to understand with Buddy Hield is the gravity he has as a basketball player. And then he said, I've got the utmost faith in him. I think he was really trying to hammer home with us, hey, Buddy Hield's good. The way he's been talked about is maybe not exactly what how the Pacers feel of Hield, and they still believe in him. And he played 24 and a half minutes in this game, was good. Obviously, when they were fully healthy against the Hornets, he played less than that. And he has not been this player, all year. But he was very good in this game and has a fan, of course, in Tyrese Haliburton. We'll see what happens ahead of the trade deadline. But a good game for Hield while still with the Pacers for sure for this game. We will be covering the trade deadline, of course, as the week progresses. But, Haliburton, I had a lot of positive things to say about Buddy Hield. Speaking of Hield in the trade deadline, I will let you guys watch it. But we did ask Buddy Hield a little bit about the deadline at his locker post-game. I'm assuming the Pacers put it up in the video, but I'll have those quotes somewhere at some point. But if you want to watch the interview, the Pacers probably put it up on their YouTube. Speaking of trade stuff, we pivot from the game to the rumors. 3 really good ones in the last, and by good ones, I mean like new and interesting and credible, and they make sense, and not good as in like, ooh, the Pacers should do this. First thing I would point out is I was doing a Bleacher Report live stream earlier today. Shout out to those of you who tuned into that. That was very fun, and I was very surprised how many people wanted to tune into me talking about the Pacers live at noon on a Tuesday. But Shams Charania reported in The Athletic this week more on the Pacers Andrew Wiggins connection. Now, Mark Stein and someone else, I cannot remember, already had stuff up on that. So Alex and I talked about that on our earlier show. But that was just fascinating to me because Wiggins has not been good this year, and his contract is certainly a negative if he plays at his current level, right? So trading for him, especially for a tax consideration team next year like the Pacers, is interesting. But this one's different a little because it's after the Siakam trade, not before, right? That's a big difference. And so I think any Andrew Wiggins Pacers trade would have to include Buddy Hield, just looking at the salaries of both rosters. And if the Pacers can get Hield where they don't give up anything of long-term value, in fact, I would argue probably get something minor from the Warriors, although I think the Warriors would easily say, hey, this guy was a really great player on a championship team. We're not giving you any extra assets to take him. And I think that's probably smart of them to do. But I don't know what the Pacers would have to think about with this because he's expensive. He's expensive and not playing well. If they thought they had a chance to get him playing better for them, maybe they would do it. But it's a really tricky one to kind of figure out just the timelines of the two teams and how it would work out. So if the Pacers give up no long-term value, I suppose I would understand it. But I think given Wiggins' play, and his contract. I don't know that that's something I would be pursuing as the Pacers, especially with the rise of Nesmith. But I guess I would get it. That's all I can ask for of anything that a team would consider from a trade perspective. If I could get it and explain it, that's good. If I am scratching my head and wondering why it happened, or I have little backing verbally for anything I can say, that's tougher. But I think I would get it, even if I don't think the Wiggins one is something I would personally do if I were running the Pacers. But wings who can defend are valuable, and you can never have too many of them. 3 more that are new. The Wiggins one's new in that it's post Siakam trade, where the first 2 reports about him were before it. The other 3 we've heard in the last couple of days are new, and we will cover them in just a moment. Before we do so, though, we've got to talk about the lovely folks over at Game Time. Have you ever had a frustrating ticket buying experience? Well, boy, do you need to use Game Time instead. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, view screen receipt, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. I use Game Time myself in New York City and used literally every single one of those features, and they are all fantastic. I got tickets to watch the New York Liberty day of. The price I saw for the 2 tickets was the price I paid. No hidden fees when they went to the next screen after picking my tickets. I could see what I was going to see in Barclays Center in the app, and I knew I was getting the best price. Why? Because Game Time has the Game Time guarantee, meaning you'll always get the best price. And you know how they know? Because if you find tickets in the same section and roll for less elsewhere, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. It is the absolute best way to buy tickets, and you should do it yourself. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKENEON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And we are back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. For your second listen, any of the teams we're about to talk about in this segment, or Locked On Warriors for the Wiggins side of that. Spoiler, the other 3 teams we'll be talking about, your second listen could be Locked On Cavs, Locked On Sixers, and Locked On Nets. 3 great shows, as they all are here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm going to start with the most recent one that came out, because this is the one about the connection to a Pacers player, where the other 2 are the Pacers being connected to a non-Pacers player. The internal one comes from Jake Fisher in Yahoo Sports, who reported today for me, yesterday for you guys, on Buddy Hield, with reported interest from the Philadelphia 76ers. Fisher's report reads, Philadelphia is exploring conversations with a variety of teams, but one known target for the Sixers is Pacers guard Buddy Hield. His league sources said Hield's $18.5 million salary would be a match for several of the Sixers' expiring contracts, and his expiring deal wouldn't add future financial burden onto Philadelphia's clean capture for the offseason. And the Sixers have left rival teams with the impression they're wary of taking back long-term salary. That last part was all important context to why the Sixers would want to do it. It's an interesting one, right? If the Pacers truly are trying to move Hield or want to move him for long-term value, or they think they can get a player roughly as good as him and value, or they think they can get a better player, it makes sense to me. Simply trading him off for assets is tough unless those assets are amazing or those assets can play for the Pacers right now. So it's just an interesting one, because the Sixers specifically are kind of tricky, right? Because Jake is correct. The Sixers do have salary matching assets that make this somewhat feasible to come up with pretty quickly, right? Marcus Morris makes enough that they could just be a straight up trade. Buddy Hield's much better than Marcus Morris, to be clear. Maybe the Sixers throw in a protected first. Maybe it's Buddy Hield plus all 3 of the Pacers seconds for less protected first. I don't know. But that does not give the Pacers a contributor this year. That's a long-term thinking move. Whereas something like Robert Covington and Furkan Korkmaz for Buddy Hield, for example, gets the Pacers. Like, Covington could probably play for the Pacers this year. That's 2 expiring contracts, though. So the Pacers don't get as much long-term value there. Could they get picks with that? Could they change it up so they do get someone who maybe has long-term value for them? They would have to get pick assets from Philly, because Buddy Hield's just straight up better than all the players that would be in such a deal. That's why this one's tough for me. If they had a player who was like very good and useful and could play for the Pacers and help them this year, Nick Batum could be that guy, but I don't think the Sixers would want to give him up for Buddy Hield. He's been rock solid for Philly all season. So this one's just hard to come up with, right? If it's Batum, then maybe I can see this happening, because then the Pacers are getting somebody I can see them using this season. But outside of that, This one's pretty tough to come up with unless it's a much bigger trade or someone unexpected like D'Anthony Melton or Batum ends up in the trade. But if it's Covington and Korkmaz, or if it's just Morris, I think the pick compensation have to be pretty good from not like awesome, but pretty good from Philly to Indiana. Number 2 that we got in the last couple days. This one comes from the New York Post. Shout out to local reporting over there from one of the tabloids in New York. I can't remember who it was. I believe it was Brian Lewis who penned this story. If I got that wrong, either Brian and the New York Post, I'm sorry. This one says, a source told the Post the Nets rejected an offer of 2 first-rounders for Dorian Finney-Smith, reportedly coveted by not just the Lakers, but also the Mavs, Bucks, Thunder, Suns, and Kings. Remember, Scott Agnes reported last summer during free agency the Pacers had interest in Finney-Smith, but he is not who we're talking about here. The report goes on to read, Royce ONeal could fetch a first-round pick and has also been linked to the Mavericks, Nuggets, Pacers, Bucks, Timberwolves, Suns, and Kings. So you just heard that sentence. Let me cut you off from your brain. If Royce ONeal costs a first-round pick, Pacers should be out. They should not do that. He's an expiring contract. Yes, he would help them, but he's an expiring contract. He's not worth a first-round pick unless you're attaching it to bad money, and the Pacers don't have any bad money. So if it actually is that price, Pacers are out. If it's just a second or 2 seconds or 3 seconds, Pacers have lots of extra seconds, then maybe they should sniff this out, right? $9.5 million for Royce ONeal right now. So that's not the hardest salary to match of all time, right? That some combo of, a young Pacers big plus another young Pacers big, or just Obi Toppin gets you pretty close. Or I don't think they would want to trade McConnell for Royce ONeal, but like his salary could be useful here. It's easier to get because it's a lower salary. You can cobble together some stuff with your smaller salaries if you're the Pacers. And he would help, right? He can defend. He can kind of shoot it, right? He's a good player. He actually is a guy, if you remember a long time ago, last year, Locked On, we did our mock draft for the first round. And I, as the Pacers, before the Pacers traded with the Nuggets, I traded the 29th pick for Royce ONeal for the Pacers. The difference between the value then and now is half a season has passed. You're getting less Royce ONeal for the trade. And that was the second to last pick in the first round, right? So the Pacers should not be trading a first for him now. What the value is specifically, whether that's like Toppin in some seconds or Toppin in another young guy or TJ McConnell, I don't know. But Royce ONeal is a good fit, right? He can shoot. The last couple of years, he's been an above-average shooter. In fact, his whole career, he's been an above-average shooter at 38.1%. He is a wing. Like if you watch him play, he defends wings. He's stocky. His nickname on Basketball Reference is Big Meal, right? Like he's a stocky wing, but he's only 6'4", right? So he's an interesting one that he'd probably play 3 for the Pacers, but a bench 3 is something that the Pacers could probably use in their rotation. So this one passes the smell test to me in that it's not crazy hard to come up with whatever the salaries would be. But certainly the reported value of a first-round pick does not make sense to me. So for the right price, yeah, I get why the Pacers would pursue Royce ONeal. And the last one that we got from Hoops Hype, I'm double-checking. I'm almost positive that's right. Michael Scotto, killer, friend of the show, Michael Scotto, reported on – why can't I find this one? Anyway, he reported on Monday or Tuesday. I can't believe. Oh, I'm looking in the wrong place. I'm stupid. Here it is. About Isaac Okoro from the Cavs. With that in mind, Okoro is expected to draw interest at the trade deadline. The Knicks, Hawks, Pacers, Suns, and Bucks are all teams to closely monitor, as all are known to have interest in acquiring the two-way wing, league sources told Hoops Hype. Fascinating. Okoro, very similar to Royce ONeal from a salary perspective at $8.9 million. Okoro is the best player we've talked about from an external perspective today. He's a great perimeter defender. He made all rookie as a rookie, obviously. He's a great perimeter defender, but the thing that's changed his perception as a player is his steadily climbing three-point percentage. Every year of his career, it's gotten better. 29, 35, 36.3, 38.5 this year. The volume isn't crazy high, but he makes them, right? That matters quite a bit. In fact, per 36, this is his second lowest three-point attempts of his career, but his two-point attempts is higher, and he's making a pretty good percentage of those, his second best ever, right? So his scoring per 36 it was 10.7 every year of his first 3 years. It's up this year to 12.2. His efficiency is higher, right? If you just straight up look at his true shooting percentage, almost 60%, second best of his career. That's above average, right? That's pretty good, and he's a good defender, right? That fits anywhere. That kind of player travels, low usage, moderate efficiency, good defender, doesn't turn it over, doesn't mess up. Like that's good. He's not like a a massive game changer, but that's a good player. He's young, and he would be a restricted free agent this summer, right? So, yes, his contract expires, but if you're the team that acquires Isaac Okoro, you could feel good about keeping him. And the reason the Cavs would trade him, well, my real answer is I'm just going to shrug and say, I don't really know. He's playing for them a lot and is good. If they did trade him, the reason that I think most would say is they're probably going to be a tax team next year, right? They're at 15 million shy of the tax right now. Without Okoro, without their draft pick next year, without Tristan Thompson, without Damian Jones, you could maybe get that in under, but probably not. Maybe they could just dump Ty Jerome's money and feel fine. So the only reason they would do it is because they felt like Okoro is going to demand too much money as a free agent next year. I don't know what that would look like. If you're the Pacers, if you can get him, if he is somehow available, this is the guy that I would think makes the most sense for them. Of the people we've said today, a wing defender who can kind of shoot it. Sounds good. Young on their timeline. He was drafted in 2020 in the lottery. That seems like a very Pacers player to me, given what their team is now. This one's hard, though, because, Royce ONeal, you cobble together the salary, you're already kind of close to his value from a pick perspective, just because he's not worth a ton right now. Isaac Okoro is probably worth a first, I would say. I don't know exactly what kind of first, but that makes it harder for the Pacers because then but by matching salaries, you're not there. You haven't reached a first round pick of value. So they'd have to include more assets or expand this trade, if they want to make it something that can give the Cavs a good player that could actually help them and make the values make more sense. And then you're getting to a better player, whether that's like a Buddy Hield or a better young guy. It's just harder to come up with what that trade would look like, even though he's probably the best fitting player of the guys we talked about today. The actual trade is the hardest, I think, to come up with and something that makes sense for the Cavs and the Pacers. So I don't know what the Pacers are going to do in the next, however long this will be when it comes out, 48 hours, something like that. That's not right. 36. There we go. There's math. I don't know what the Pacers are going to do in the next 36 hours, but we've gotten the signals. We've read the reports, and it seems like the stuff to look at is the stuff we've been talking about. Their expiring contracts, their front court logjam. Will they move on a wing, another wing? That seems like the stuff that is worth watching, and we'll cover it all here on the Locked On Pacers podcast. Likely a guest tomorrow. I've been super slacking, so I'm hopeful to have somebody, but I'm going to be honest, a little burnt out. A lot going on in the basketball world professionally between Fever free agency, Pacers trade deadline, lots of games, All-Stars coming up, lots to juggle. And I'm hopeful that I can give you guys great content while that's going on. You don't care that I'm burnt out. You want to hear more about the Pacers and the trade deadline, and you will tomorrow with someone else talking about the storylines to watch day of, what maybe happened Wednesday around the league, how that impacts the Pacers, all sorts of stuff. And then Thursday, obviously, deadline day. You'll hear from me. I might do a show just straight up in Cambridge after the deadline, but before Pacers Warriors, and then a second show after the Warriors game with maybe more reactions, and then from that game, and then also talking about what the front office said about the trade deadline, because I think we'll hear from them Thursday. We'll see. I don't know the exact schedule. Anyway, that was a lot of stuff, some administrative, some important, but there's a lot to go on when there's 2 home games, trade deadline, etc. for the Pacers, and you'll get it all here on the Locked On Pacers podcast. Thank you all for listening. This was an extremely fun episode to do. That game was fun to watch, and they have another one come Thursday, their last home game prior to the All-Star break. Back tomorrow talking trade deadline. If you want to yell at me because I said something dumb, I do that quite a bit. I'm on Twitter at Tony R. East. That's where you can also find my announcements on the last stream I'm doing this week. Live stream Friday with Bleacher Report again, talking about what the Pacers did at the deadline and how they're set up for free agency. We're talking Warriors and trades later this week. This show is on Twitter at Locked On Pacers. Thank you all so much for listening. Have a wonderful day. We will see you soon.